While Euro leaders may have snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, the process of getting here has been poisonous. There is anger on the streets of Athens today. Make no bones about it. Physical abuse is the most commonly understood form of domestic violence. But there's another type that's lesser known, but no less insidious. Economic abuse, where one partner deprives the other of economic freedom by restricting their access to money and credit and undermining their ability to make a living. This pensioner is holding up a sign that says, "I'm afraid of starvation." It illustrates perfectly the stark choice lawmakers here face. Either adopt more punishing austerity measures and heap even more pain on a population pushed to the financial edge, or risk collapsing the Greek economy. She said that coming out and chanting is simply not going to be enough. Her concern is that protests like these will lose momentum before real change is effected. Well, the question is, how weak is it really, and how much weaker will it become? Of course, China weakness is nothing new, but when we take a look at this reading on manufacturing, okay, this is a private reading, and it has shown that in December, it was the 10th consecutive month of a contraction in China's manufacturing sector. So how does this feed into our market? Well, the commodity price channel is one of the big ones. Of course, as manufacturing shrinks, that ebbs China's appetite for raw materials. That lowers the price of commodities like metals, and then in turn roils the economies of markets that actually export those to China. Economies like Brazil, economies like New Zealand, economies like Australia. Okay, and all of this also feeds back into the United States because, of course, as China slows down, it drags down the global volume of trade, and we are part of this global economy.
It was an attempt at a quick fix. Did it work?
No, it didn't work, and it just reeked of desperation, John, because Russia's central bank has spent more than $80 billion defending the ruble this year. It hasn't stemmed the slide in the ruble at all. And basically, the markets, they smelled blood in the water. They went in for the kill. But just to give you an idea of how this must feel if you're in Moscow right now, imagine you go to bed and your adjustable rate mortgage or your student loans at 4.5%, and all of a sudden you wake up and it's 10%, 12%, 13%. On areas of contention between the United States and China, such as China's intentions in the South China Sea, we really didn't see any progress on that issue during Xi's visit. All we saw were reiterations from the White House over their concerns over China's island building, that land reclamation that they're doing to really cement their claims to disputed territories in the South China Sea. So probably what we're going to see is a pretty big focus on climate.
Did we see any progress as it pertains to cybersecurity?
Well, basically what you had was an official acknowledgement, if you will, that neither government will support cyber spying and cyber theft. But it should be pointed out that before this state visit even took place, both governments denied that their governments ever supported or engaged in the practice. So we got an announcement which looked good and made great headlines, but really didn't make any headway. Have you recalibrated your assessment of ISIL's command structures in the wake of the Paris attacks?
It's still not clear. If it was centrally directed from Raqqa or Mosul, then yes, we probably do have to reassess.
Now, if these attacks were planned by ISIL cells operating within Europe, what does that say, first of all, about the nature of their operation, how they're possibly communicating with one another, and the ability of European intelligence to thwart future attacks like this on Western soil? What is your gut telling you about the nature then of that command and control structure? Does that tell you that it's being centrally coordinated from ISIL strongholds within the Middle East, or do you think that these are just highly effective cells and coincidence that these are all happening so close together? Libya, you were a vocal advocate of military intervention. And today Libya is a failed state. It is a launch pad for refugees to go into Europe that is fueling the refugee crisis in Europe. Were you wrong?
I don't think I was wrong, but
the U.S. is the most powerful member of NATO. Clearly, the U.S. is the one that takes leadership on these issues.
Hang on.
To the security situation in Kiev, hundreds of bomb threats in the last year, and just this month, 2 prominent pro-Russian figures gunned down in your city.
We have everything under control in the capital of Ukraine. Kyiv is saved.
How can you say it's safe, though, when you've had 2 prominent pro-Russian figures gunned down in your capital? To do business here, you need a high tolerance for risk. But the majority of Iraqis aren't looking to make a quick buck. With the country's main employer, the government, now in ruins, most people are simply trying to survive. This was the second deadly clash between U.S. forces and Iraqi civilians in Fallujah in less than 48 hours. Still, the U.S. military insists just a handful of Iraqis is causing trouble here. The attack here was the first of its kind against U.S. soldiers inside Kabul, but it was hardly an isolated incident. U.S. and coalition forces in Afghanistan are attacked an average of 50 times a month.